still a lot of companies, as Robert said earlier, that have on their career site, if you use generative AI, if you use AI in your application, it will class it as cheating, will ban you from applying, etc., etc., etc. And I think that's actually more of a dangerous thing to talk about, because there are some vendors in our industry that talk about providing tooling to recruiters around detecting AI usage. And I think it's probably quite important for us to talk about the dangers in that number one, from a technology perspective, because they don't work ultimately, and there's a simple prompt that can beat a text classifier every single time. But also from a regulation perspective, again, you're using technology to make a decision on somebody that's not 100% efficient and effective. And so if you end up making a decision that's incorrect, what bother is that going to get you in as an employer as well? So there's lots of concerns around the deter and detect. Not only that, but also if you give somebody a job and 6 months down the line they say they used AI in their application, what do you have to do? Discipline them? Get rid of them? There's so many holes and problems in that methodology, in that detect and deter methodology, that it's not worth even going down that route now.
I don't see what's the point in detecting when you've got 90% people saying they're already using it. So you can already move to a presumption that more or less it will be ubiquitous. So congratulations, everyone's using AI. You can deter, which again, you might actually succeed in deterring, but that's a negative, because there's a lot of people might be intimidated by this, and they're handicapping their own sort of job search, because they are, let's say, happy to take direction from you, but other people aren't. Why are they have achieved the advantage that way? Robert, go back to you. Are there any other examples? And we've got a wonderful one here at Shoesmith. We've got some good links shared in the chat as well from Monzo, it seems, also HelloFresh. Do you know any other organizations that you think have actually handled this situation well? I wonder whether we just throw out maybe a few case studies to look at.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I shared some of them earlier. You've got Siemens, Amazon, for example. I think one of the challenges and we've seen it a little bit on the chat on this, is what do we do about doing things online? We need to screen things online. We can't have everything in person. So it's the same in education as well. So a lot of universities have moved away from unproctored exams as a result of COVID. And so just don't have the infrastructure or the money now, and that's true for employers, to go back to fully proctored exam situations or testing situations. So you've got to figure out, how do we get from thousands of applications quickly down to those people who are going to be a good fit, and get them in front of a recruiter, a human, as quickly as possible. And I think that's what people should be looking at. I do believe that quite often the applications are too long. We ask too many questions around what we need from people before we've said, actually, we want to bring them in, and therefore make a commitment that we want from them, as well as a commitment from us to spend some time with them. So I think the application needs to be much simpler. I think we've got a lot of challenges around how we make good use of psychometrics, but also good uses of video assessments, which is also very popular, one-way video assessments. Again, we need good guidance on what is a good use of GenAI to support a video interview question versus bad use. And so I think that's for me, and there's I gave a few examples there, is how do you get down from the thousands of applications in a fair way that enables GenAI to be sat out there. I still think, you can use a cover note. We talked to Siemens about this as an example, about when do you use, an application question type of approach, where I don't like cover letters, but I do like carefully constructed application questions. If somebody has got the capabilities, what we like to call the skill enablers, to do well in that job, and then you can go and look at their application to see their motivations as well. So you either do it through an application or you do that through a video assessment. Then I think that's a good way of getting a holistic view before you then bring them in to an in-person piece. But it's that, how do we screen the volumes quickly, and then how do we get somebody and fairly, and how do we then get somebody into an in-person situation for an interview or assessment center.
Sam, I want to bring you back on this. It sounds like you've kind of kept some of those elements, the in-person assessments and stuff. So, but before I go to Sam with that question, we've only got 15 minutes left, folks. So time is flying. If you have any questions for the panel that you want to have addressed, please use the Q&A function. We're going to go to that in 5 minutes, and then we're going to go through those questions. The poll, I think if you haven't voted on that, I think it's already too late, but we'll flash the poll up results in due course in a minute as well. Sam, let's go back to you on the in-person side. What's your take on remote-only assessments? Do you reckon that's done, like it's over with regards to sort of GenAI AI-enabled candidates?
There were some real benefits of doing remote virtual assessment centres like during COVID times, but we couldn't wait to get back to get an in-person assessment centre back on the table, because we feel like we get so much more out of the candidates that way, and they get an experience out of us as well. So you know, they get to come in and meet people and all of that good stuff too. It's not just about grilling them, but so I do think it is important where you want to assess them as people, you know, not, you don't, I think some of the comments I've read have said, you know, what about, you don't know if somebody else is or AI is writing their application form for them. But before, you didn't know if their mum or dad was writing their application for them. You didn't know if their best mate was sitting the video assessment for them. There's always been that problem with doing remote things. So I think there is a huge benefit to doing things in person, more for the holistic view of an individual, but as well as for the assessment part. And in the back of our minds, we were a little bit wary about, what if we've now said, yeah, sure, use AI on your application form, and then everybody does fantastic applications, and we put our next number through to the in-person assessment centre, and suddenly nobody can do anything. It was a fear in the back of our minds, and when we look back at the data, we saw there was an uptick in quality at application stage, and we do think that was probably because people were using AI as a tool to elevate their application forms. But there was also an uptick in quality on the assessment centre as well. So we saw fantastic candidates on the assessment centre. We made all the offers that we needed to make. And we were no way on the assessment centres questioning, you know, how did these people get to this point? Was it because we let them use AI? So for us, we've seen a really natural progression in quality and who we've seen coming through the process. And I think that's because we didn't just eradicate the whole process we had and start with something new. We've done it, you know, foot by foot, shoe by shoe, along the way. And that's been easier for our candidates to take on board as well, and be able to, you know, learn about what the new process is and follow our guidance.
The reality is the value that we provide to an employer, if we're working as a corporate recruiter, is to provide that layer of sort of human interface with candidates. So in fact, we should welcome this, because if we went down just purely remote assessments, you can imagine that getting to a point where actually the human recruiter disappears from the process entirely, and you're just going to use the tech to make assessments. So which might suit some organizations, don't get me wrong. I think particularly for companies that are 100% remote, have always been remote, no office available, then sure, maybe that's the most suitable. But for most organizations that still have offices and have a component of the workforce in offices, then probably that's not what we want. Okay, folks, we have to go to questions. So get your questions in. Let's just go through these. As we evolve recruitment and candidate assessments to integrate AI-enabled talent, it's not just about how we assess, but what we assess. With generative AI becoming a fundamental tool like a calculator, how does this shift the job requirements? How does it shift our skill set? So in other words, if we are interviewing and assessing AI-enabled candidates, are we actually now looking for different things? Like what kind of skills have shifted? Thoughts on this? Robert, you're nodding your head, so why don't you give this answer a go?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, Artie Schultz, we've been a big proponent that the introduction of GenAI has not just given an opportunity to address, the process itself, but actually what we measure is as important to review as how we measure. And for me, the what does change. We've now got a tool that processes information incredibly well. And so, as Sam alluded to earlier, we've not just seen it for lawyers, but many other knowledge-based roles. What you're looking for is more of the people skills now. So communication, collaboration, different types of cognitive skills, so problem solving, learning agility, because we're going to have to learn much faster now as things change. So I think both the cognitive and the soft skills that we use to measure are going to be fundamentally different for what's important in the future compared to what we had in the past.
Yeah, and folks, if you haven't read, I think didn't Arctic Shores come out with a guide recently on this? So some thoughts about what sort of skills that actually we do need to be recruiting for in this AI-enabled future. Bear in mind, by the way, AI is going to be able to replicate a lot of the things that we'd previously tested for and thought were really, this is knowledge, this is skills, lots of things, right? So what is it that actually we're looking for? Is the usage of AI in the recruitment process by candidates a way of assessing candidate capability using AI? So in other words, should we keep quiet about it and then just like look at the guys or the people who are using AI and think, okay, they're kind of what we want and filter them in forward? Kind of like, back in the day, we'd take a heuristic to assess, oh, this person's using a Hotmail email, therefore not with the cool kids out. What's our policy there, Martin? Any thoughts on this?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts around use of AI at work and what have you. And I keep saying, it's almost as ubiquitous now as kind of the word processor. And when you think about it, 25, 30 years ago, all of our job adverts said must be able to use Microsoft Word, must be able to use Microsoft Office, and we're kind of seeing the same thing. And what did we do 30 years ago? We had somebody sitting down doing a typing test. And how many words per minute can you put into a word processor? Maybe a bit longer than 30 years ago, showing my age then. But that's kind of where we're going to have to get to. If we're looking, we can say, oh, you're using AI in your application. We don't know that 100%, but that should be encouraged as far as I'm concerned. But actually, we just need to have a good way of assessing AI skills in the same way that we can assess word processing skills and Excel skills.
You know what? It's a really good point. I'm just thoughts occurred to me. Like, would you actually hire someone today if the person didn't have any AI skills or AI interest? If the person professed, I've heard of ChatGPT, but there's no further investigation or usage or anything like that. Not even usage. Forget about proficiency. There's no even usage. Would you hesitate to go and offer that person a job? I think for a lot of jobs you would, wouldn't you? It's almost like someone who's saying, a person who's not used the internet. It's like, I'd have a question mark a little bit. Like how can you do this? And for sure, maybe it's not entirely dependent on the job that we're recruiting for, but it seems that you've decided to completely decouple from something that is obviously going to be world changing and changing of work.
Can I just add on that, Hung? I think it's a good point, but it's one that we've got to be very careful about because you've got access to this. Correct. And again, if we look at lower socioeconomic status groups, they know about AI, but much lower usage just because of access to technology around that. And they may have the awareness, but not the skills. And that's not through capability, it's just access. So I think that we may well move to a point where that skill is essential in there. And as Martin says, how do we assess for it? But equally, we've got to be super careful that we're not creating a divide again between those who have access and those that don't.
OpenAI's financials leaked the other day. And there's thought process around the fact that the price of the Pro version is going to be, or the Plus version, sorry, is going to be up to about $44 in the next few years. So it's going to create more of a socio-economic divide then than it is now. So it's something to bear in mind, absolutely.
Quite right to bring that up, you two. 100% correct. Let's not forget as well, like the people who we're talking about may not actually have a laptop, for instance. And a laptop is, most AI tools currently are kind of not mobile first. So until they start migrating into at least a mobile phone, then at least we need to be very careful. Quite right on that, Robert. Okay. We're coming to the end of this show, so let's do a quick round robin and give a bit of advice for people listening to this. They need to do something about sort of making sure their recruiting process is AI is kind of future fit for the AI enabled candidate. What's one piece of advice that you could offer this person? Samantha, let's go to you first.
I think firstly, if you're not personally using AI in your life, and this is something that you think is going to be coming in for you to sort of run as a careers team or in your business, and you've got to get used to it, get comfortable with using it yourself, and whether that's sort of in a work capacity or if it's just to help you out, I don't know, meal plan for the week or something, you know, in your personal life. I used it to create superhero names for my 4-year-old's birthday party for all the kids, you know, and that's just a really fun and silly thing to do, but oh my god, it was a great time saver and it was great on their party bags, you know. So just get used to using it yourself, because how will you know how candidates are planning to use it in the job application process or personally otherwise?
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Samantha. A bit of advice for the person who needs to sort of proof their recruiting process. Martin.
Yeah, don't go down the detect and deter route at all. It's dangerous. It's and it's not future proof. So don't do that. If you're even thinking about it, push back on any of your leadership and tell them to come to talk to me if they need a reason why.
To be honest, if you do follow Martin, he's one of the experts in there. Martin, share your link into the chat there. Make sure people connect. Really good advice. Final word to you, Robert. Bit of advice for people who are watching this and thinking, okay, now what?
Yeah, got to get guidance up on your career site, and then read our research and listen to the TA Disruptors podcast, because you'll get even more useful information from that.
Fantastic stuff. Folks, thank you so much for paying attention to us and having this conversation. It's been wonderful having you. Hopefully you found value and use in this. Here's the poll, by the way. Where are we? What camp are we in? Fight. You know what? I give respect to the 2% that are fighting away. I think you're wrong, but you know what? You got my respect. Freeze have got 7%. Friend, we've got 91. So sentiment-wise, at least we're in the right direction. That gives us some hope for the future. Okay, that's about it, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Robert Newry. Thank you, Martin Redson. Thank you, Samantha Hope. Wonderful having a chat with you today on this panel.